I call upon the name of the Lord that I read this rightly. This is Genesis 3. Now the serpent was more subtle than any beast of the field which the Lord God had made. And he said unto the woman, Yea, hath God said, Ye shall not eat of every tree of the garden? So straight away, first verse of chapter 3, we have something not right. And what we're told is that God had made this beast the most subtle of all. And here we have a serpent talking to the woman, which is obviously odd. Yea, hath God said, do we have a question? You shall not eat of every tree of the garden. And as we know in everyday life, asking questions, which are bad questions, is a way of actually undermining truth. As we know as you see in lots of things in life, you can ask a bad question, an evil question. Now what we need to learn is you don't have to answer bad questions. There's no obligation upon you to answer bad questions. Anyway, let's carry on. And the woman said unto the serpent, We may eat of the fruit of the trees of the garden. So she's been beguiled already, straight away. She's not really realised what's happening to her, and she's immediately answered, probably because she's innocent. She's without sin, we know that. But of the fruit of the tree which is in the midst of the garden, God hath said, Ye shall not eat of it, neither shall ye touch it, lest ye die. Now straight away, that's incorrect. He actually said, You shall not eat of it, lest ye die. He did not say you can't touch it. So already we're seeing pharisaical thinking in her. Why she made this mistake, it's unknown, but that's what she has said. It does suggest, though, that Adam and Eve were not perfect in their knowledge. There were potentially errors in their thinking at the time, but they weren't sinful errors. They were just mistakes, possibly. I don't know, but it could be the case. And the serpent said unto the woman, Ye shall not surely die. An absolute, blatant lie. And we know that because that's what God said to Adam earlier on in chapter 2. Absolute, blatant lie. For God doth know that in the day ye eat thereof, then your eyes shall be opened, and ye shall be as gods, knowing good and evil. How does the serpent know that? He's blatantly lying. There's no way he knows that God knows that. In the year of, then your eyes shall be open. Absolute lie. A blatant lie. And then he's saying, basically, if you eat of it, God knows that you should be as gods, knowing good and evil. The serpent knows nothing of the sort. And then when the woman saw that the tree was good for food, and that it was pleasant to the eyes, and a tree to be desired to make one wise, she took of the fruit thereof, and did eat, and gave also unto her husband with her, and he did eat. How quickly she was beguiled. And the husband was with her. So Adam was with her at the time. That's interesting because we don't see that at the start of chapter 1. We see that later on. So for reasons which at the moment I can't tell why, we're not told at the beginning of chapter 1 that Adam was with her, but we are told in verse 6. So Adam must have been with her all along. She did the talking. Maybe she was doing the talking on behalf of the two of them. Maybe that's the case. And Adam didn't correct her one jot. And the eyes of them both were opened, and they knew that they were naked. And they sewed fig leaves together, and made themselves aprons. Now, the eyes of them were both opened. I don't really know what that really means, because they were open all the time. They were open the whole time they were in the Garden of Eden. So I don't quite know what that means. And they knew that they were naked. But they were naked all along. So to know you're naked is, maybe they were ashamed they were naked. Maybe that's more, I don't know. It's just odd to say that when they knew they were naked beforehand, and their eyes had been opened all the time. But this is different now. Something has come upon them, basically. And they sewed fig leaves together and made themselves aprons. Now we know later on God does more than just giving them fig leaves. He literally has to sacrifice an animal to give them skin covering and to fully clothe them. So God always does more for you than you can do for yourself. And they heard the voice of the Lord walking in the garden in the cool of the day. And Adam and his wife hid themselves from the presence of the Lord God amongst the trees of the garden. So yes, this is shame. And in French it's called opprobre. So they were ashamed of what they'd done, basically. So shame came upon them. It's shame that did all this. And they knew they'd sinned against God the Father. Interesting how the voice of the Lord, they heard the voice first, they didn't see him first. But they knew he was walking in the garden in the cool of the day. Interesting, the cool of the day. It's quite sort of, oh, isn't this lovely, sort of walking in the garden. But no, despite all that, they've ruined it. They've utterly ruined what God has given them. Totally. And here he says, and Adam and his wife. I don't know if he's actually called, yes, I think he might have called him Eve earlier on, but he says Adam and his wife, not Adam and Eve. It's recognizing it's Adam and his wife and putting Adam first in the sentence. So Adam really is responsible for all this. They hid themselves from the presence of the Lord God amongst the trees of the garden. So they were totally ashamed and they hid themselves. I shall stop there.